Whispering Woods, The Dark Secret of Indigo Lake. Prologue. Something about Indigo Lake had the adults in town shook up and somewhat spooked. But it was not until the children of Locust Corners witnessed something at Camp Machuca for it to all make sense. Tell me, who couldn't wait until school was out? The children of Oakview Elementary School sure couldn't wait. Lily Thompson and Penny, Penn for short, Carter, were the best of friends ever since they were in diapers. They shared everything. You would think they were sisters. Walking side by side, Lily said to Penn, Part 1. Suits. I packed 4 new bathing suits this morning before school. 2 are bikinis. My mom let me pick them out. Penny replied, My mom would never let me do that, but she did let me buy new swimsuits, the kind that look like these skimpy Olympic swimsuits. My dad was a counselor at Camp Machuca a long time ago. He's old, you know, said Lily. The girls laughed. Did he ever say the camp gave him the willies? No, but he did say he had a lot of fun when he was there. It's going to be cool, Penn. I just know it. Guess who's going to be there this year? 3 guesses. No, I'll tell you. Brendan, Andy, and Zach. No! Oh my God! Zach is coming? He's my heartbeat. You can't tell anybody, Lily. Anybody. Wow. It's going to be a great summer. The 2 friends parted ways and headed home. Meanwhile, Brendan, Andy, and Zach were on their bicycles having a conversation about what they looked forward to during the camp. So glad school is out. Bring on summer, shouted Andy. Who's going to Camp Machuca this year? Asked Brandon. I am, replied Zach. Andy asked, I thought we were all going. Just checking to see if you squids were backing out, said Brendan. Zach said, Nah, man. Penny's going. Penny Carter? You like her, don't you? Andy asked. Yeah, man. And she likes me, too, replied Zach. You hope she does, said Brendan. They all laughed. Part 2. Remember. Soon, the year of 2012 was over, and they were all entering their first year of high school. A week later, at the neighborhood park, them, as well as a large group of teens, boarded the yellow buses to Camp Machuca. Head camp counselor Tammy Jones called out all 65 of them who were going. Here, said Penny. Zach smiled. They were on their way. Passing by the old burned-out hotel that was once called the Whispering Woods gave all those who were on board the chills. Years ago, it was said that a woman lost her 2 young children there. After swimming in the lake behind the hotel, they suddenly vanished without a trace. Heartbroken and angry, the woman attacked the staff and the police department because she felt they didn't do enough to find them. So, she set a big part of the hotel on fire. It was so badly burned that the owners never replaced it. Many in the community believed she never left. After arriving, Bus 69 was joined with 2 other buses filled with the children from other counties. They all disembarked and was shown to their cabins. All was quiet the first week. Part 3. Lights. Into the 3rd week at the camp, the 5 friends began to know each other very well and acquired an additional friend from a county close by. Sheena Dobson's brother had once dated Lily's babysitter a while ago, so their acquaintance was very friendly, to say the least. Any friend of Lily's was a friend of Penny's. The girls bonded together, and the boys had no problems in keeping up with their mischievous deeds. All went well. The camp was filled with laughter. After the last call for lights out, all was quiet. The pollywogs and crickets were all you could hear, until a loud shrieking scream was heard in cabin number 5. It was one of the camp counselors. When she woke, she told her fellow counselors that she was having a dream filled with the horror of being abducted, killed, then made over again, this time as an automaton, a robot. Laughing about it was the only relief the campers had. This brought back memories of the children that went missing at the Whispering Woods Hotel. After all, what was left of it was a stone's throw away from the camp. Many of them had a hard time falling back to sleep, especially those who were in Counselor Ingles' cabin. Lily, Penny, and Sheena stayed up most of the night, quietly speaking about the incident, as it was told to them by their parents. The next day was filled with fun and laughter, as most of them played games and frolicked in the lake. Canoeing, archery, and fishing was the order for today. But none of those things meant nothing to Lily and the gang. So she and her cohorts decided to explore the woods. Noticing their exit from the rest of the campers, Counselor Mark Johnson shouted to them, "Hey, don't go too deep into those woods. We are responsible for you, you know." Yeah, we hear you. I know these woods. I got this," said Andy. The group trudged on, and by the time their conversation about the counselor's dream was over, they had ventured too far in, as warned. "Oh, shit. Where are we?" asked Brendan. "I don't know. Andy, I thought you were the navigator of this trip. You never knew where we were going. And now we all fucked," replied Zach. Looking around, Andy responded by saying, "We passed by that big pine tree before. I could have sworn this was the way back, but I'm not so sure now." Part 4. What is that? A rustling sound startled the group, and before they realized who it was, Mark shouted to them, "Lost, are we? I told you kids not to go deep in here. I should have never followed you, but my conscience didn't agree with me. Next time you go in here, you're on your own. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. We were scared for a minute. I knew our way back. I just got turned around somehow, said Andy. As the group began to exit the woods, they came upon a clearing. And in this clearing, they observed a huge stone, a flat rock that displayed dried embedded blood with scattered shards of bone around the bottom of it. What the said Mark. Is that blood? Asked Sheena. Hell yes, and bones on the ground. Mr. Johnson, you have to get us out of here, please, cried Penny. Okay, let's go this way, he shouted. As soon as they were about to gain an exit, something stopped them from leaving. They all hid behind one of the huge boulders that lined the outer area of the clearing. What they saw was mind-bending, enough for the boys to put their hands over the girls' mouths. Out of the dense woods came some sort of beings. They were slow in strut, but looked very powerful, almost transparent, like a chameleon. Their necks and extremities extended way beyond their bodies. With them in tow, they were dragging 2 large live cows. They placed them on the large rock and began to dissect them, all the while draining the blood from the animals. After this went on for about a half an hour, the entities began to gather the remains. Water from their extremities flushed the excessive blood off the rocks. The group waited until it felt safe to leave, and when it was clear, Mark led them all in the opposite direction, shouting, "Don't you ever leave camp again! Did you see that? Grace will never believe me. She'll think I'm crazy." "No, she won't. You have 6 witnesses. We saw it too," said Lily. Running back to the camp as fast as they could, the group stirred up an audience while Mark searched for Grace to warn her of what they saw. "I'm telling you, these things me and the kids saw, they were not human. They were an animal. I don't know what they were. I'm telling you, we need to call these kids' parents and get the hell away from here." Grace said, "You have to be more specific than this, Mark. I can't create a false alarm about something you are not sure of. And besides, as long as this camp has been here, nothing like this has ever been reported before. You sound insane." "Okay, if you don't believe me, I'll go get the kids," he replied. Just outside of the headquarters, Lily and her friends were conversing to the other campers. By then, they had gathered all around them, talking about what they saw, describing everything down to a T. "Lily, Zach, all of you come in here now," said Mark. Once they came in, Grace asked, "First of all, why would you go into those woods when you were told not to without supervision. That's a notch against your credits. And second, Mark said something really weird about the allegations of seeing something out there. Tell me what you all saw, and don't speak at once. Andy spoke up to recap the entire story from the beginning to the end. Each one of them agreed and confirmed Mark's version of what happened. So what he says is true? She asked. Mark broke in and said, "You take their word over what I just told you? Okay, Grace. Kids, you're on your own. I'm out of here." He went back to his cabin, packed his bags, and placed them on the back of his motorcycle and sped off down the dirt road, leaving her and the other counselors to tend with the situation. Sheena said, "Call my parents. I'm ready to go too." Think of the money your parents spent to make sure you guys have a great summer getaway with all your friends. You would be disrupting their plans they made for themselves. Okay, tonight I will think about going out there to see it for myself. You can show me the way, okay? Now, no more talk about cows and aliens. We don't want to stir up any more fear in the others. Just go and have fun with all your friends, replied Grace. Part 5. Call. Penny and Zach walked away from the others and started their own conversation. "Zach, I'm afraid to go back out there. Whatever they were was not in any of our science books." "I didn't turn my cell phone in to my counselor. Let's call our parents to come and get us," he said. "What about our friends? We can't leave them here. They deserve to go home too," said Penny. Okay. Let's go down to the dock and call. Nobody's down there to hear us," replied Zach. While making the call, both Zach and Penny watched in the distance an ethereal glowing hue under the vast lake. Indigo Lake's depth was measured at 336 feet and a mile wide. Residents was actually afraid for the safety of their children, but they trusted the supervisors of the camp to keep their loved ones safe. As quick as they saw it, it disappeared just as fast. "Did you see that?" Penny asked. "Yes, and I'm calling my dad," said Zach. Zach dialed his father. His stepmom answered. "What do you want, Zach?" "I want to talk to my dad." "He's not here. You want to leave him a message?" "No. When is he coming back?" "He had to work, you numbnut." "Gosh, you are so selfish at times, Zach. I just don't..." Before she could finish, he hung up on her. "Maybe you'll have better luck with your parents than me," he said while passing her the phone. Penny dialed and got her dad on the line. "Dad, It's me, Penny. You have to come and get me and my friends. Something is happening at the lake. We saw a thing. No, not a thing. We saw something very strange. Some animals that we never saw before. They were dragging some cows. Come and get us, please, she cried.
That sounds silly, Penny. The stories you all tell at that camp is ridiculous. Try not to eat too many s'mores. Sugar is not good for you late at night. Hang up, sweetie. Your mother and I have a very early day tomorrow. We love you. Kisses.
Will you love me when I'm dead, Dad? She said, just when he hung up. Zach asked,
What do we do now?
Go back to our cabin and wait to see what Miss Grace does in the morning. Zach walked Penny back to her cabin. He leaned in and kissed her.
This is from me and your parents. It's going to be okay, Penny. You'll see.
Part 6. Grace. Early the next morning, the counselors, along with the kids, had pretty much forgotten about the day before. The activities went on as usual. After breakfast, the games were on. Except during this time, Grace was leaving instructions to another counselor. If, for some unknown reason, they were not back in 6 hours, Emma was instructed to call the authorities. Otherwise, stick to the camp's schedule. Grace met with the children near the entrance of the woods. She said, "Well, Andy, lead the way."
Yes, ma'am.
After Andy, Brendan followed. Then Grace, Zach, Penny, Lily, and Sheena. They kept a trail of cotton from a spare pillow to find their way back. Soon, after an hour and a half, they found the clearing.
Here it is, Miss Grace. Just like we last saw it,
said Andy. She looked all around and saw the bones and the dried blood. She wanted to make sense of what she saw. But being a thorough person, she needed more time to make a valid decision of what they found. "I'm scared they'll be coming back, Miss Grace. Can we go now?" asked Lily. "You go on ahead. I'll catch up. Besides, the cotton will get me back." Following the trail they made, Camp Huachuca was a sight to behold. None of them wanted to show Grace, but now they feel like once she returns, they can all go home. Emma met them near the entrance of the woods and asked them, where was Grace? They told her she wanted to stay a little longer to find out what happened there. Since their first encounter in the woods, they shared all activities together. 2 hours went by. No Grace. Emma came out to ask them had they seen her come back. No one had. 4 hours. 6 hours. It was getting dusk dark. Emma was really concerned now, so she called the sheriff's department.
Sheriff's Department.
Yes, this is Emma Stanton at Camp Huachuca, and I'd like to report a missing person.
What's the name and when did this person go missing?
She went missing about 6 hours ago in the woods. It's Grace Carter, and she's head counselor at this camp.
Did anyone see her go in the woods?
Yes, she went into the woods with a few of the children. They are back, but she told me she wanted to explore something they found yesterday and for them to come back to camp. She should have been here 6 hours ago.
All right, hold on,
said dispatch. A man with a raspy voice answered.
This Sheriff York. What's going on at that camp?
Part 7. Missing. Sheriff York, our counselor is missing. She was wearing blue jeans and a long-sleeved red and white shirt. Grace was supposed to come back from the woods with these kids. Instead, she told me she wanted to stay and find out what happened there. Something about some bones and blood in the area, said Emma.
Blood and bones? Y'all stay put. I'm coming out there,
he replied. 15 minutes later, the sheriff and 3 of his deputies were on the scene. Soon, a slew of townspeople with guns and hound dogs joined in. Other people who heard the call that came over ham radio showed up too. The fire department and ambulances arrived as well.
What's the deal, Billy? Say we got a missing persons case?
Asked the fire chief.
Dunno, Clyde. Emma here says Miss Grace done gone missing since 9 a.m. this morning. No one's seen her since,
replied the sheriff.
That's a shame, but we'll find her. All right, listen up. This is a missing persons case. We all know Grace Carter. We know what she looks like, and I told y'all what she was wearing. So we're going to comb these woods until midnight. If we don't find her by then we'll start again at daybreak. All right? Let's go.
The people searching started heading for the woods. The parents of the children got wind of what happened and descended on the camp to get their children. It was chaos. But before the 6 friends could leave, the sheriff stopped the parents and asked them,
Can these guys show me where they last saw Miss Grace?
I'm sorry, Sheriff, I can't. Too much has gone on here, and I can't chance what happened to Grace might happen to mine, said Lily's mom. Penny's dad said,
I can't either, Billy. I should have listened to my daughter when she called me last night. She called you last night? What did you say, Horn?
Asked the sheriff. Interrupting him, Penny's dad replied, She told me her and her friends saw some kind of animal they never saw before, dragging some cows. That's all she knows.
Let us by, Billy.
The sheriff stepped aside to let them go to their cars. Zach shouted out,
Call Mark Johnson. He saw it too. Somebody get Mark Johnson and bring him down here,
said the sheriff. When the deputy returned with Mark, he continuously told them that he warned Grace about what they saw and to shut the camp down. She wouldn't listen. He told them he refused to go back in there.
Although I'm not going back, I can tell you where we saw them. I told all 6 children not to go into the woods, and they went anyway. I followed them, and it's a good thing I did. We went northeast about 1.5 miles until I came upon a clearing with huge boulders and a big flat rock in the center. The children were looking all around it. I startled them, and as I was telling them how hard their heads were, we heard a rustle in the bushes. We hid behind one of the big boulders. Man, I tell you, what we saw was, well, I don't know what they were. They were dragging live cows. Moo. I'm not going back in there. Okay, you say 1.5 miles northeast of here?
The sheriff asked.
Yes, replied Mark. Good luck.
Their search went on for hours until daybreak. No one found anything. This went on for 6 weeks. They didn't even find the clearing Mark spoke about. No rocks, no boulders, nothing. The search was over, and Camp Huachuca was closed down permanently. Part 8. Die Hard. 10 years later, after the horrific incident at Indigo Lake, the town had calmed down. The case of Grace Carter had officially closed. Although some die-hard loyalists were not on the verge of giving up, they still believed, after all these years, she could still be alive. One thing's for sure, the sheriff gave up long ago, but it occasionally crossed his mind. Now those same children that was at the camp that day were all grown up and back in Locust Corners after they graduated from college. Andrew Yickett earned a degree as a forestry/environmental technician. Brendan Bates became a master mathematician. Zach Bacola's specialty was in astronomy. Penny Driscoll took up astronomy as well. She was an associate scientist. Lily Thompson studied animals and became a veterinary specialist / underwater research analysis. Sheena Dobson received a degree in forensic science. They all came back for one reason only: to find out what happened to Grace Carter and Olivia and Noah Spencer. It was at this time they realized the killing of humans may have been committed over the 200 years the town had been there. Was there more? 2 weeks after their arrival, the crew prepared to venture back out into the woods near the lake. Armed with technological equipment, complicated components, monitors, cameras, microphones, guns, and camping gear, they began on their journey. They drove to the edge of the road where the woods began. Andy tried to remember the trail that led to the opening of the clearance. He recalled after asking the sheriff if they ever found the spot. The retired sheriff said the clearance wasn't there anymore. It would be hard-pressed to find. Finally, after walking over 2 hours and with the sonar equipment Lily brought with her, he was able to pinpoint a few of the boulders that had been covered over with kudzu. They saw some headway after clearing and chopping down the thick vegetation. The boulders began to show their presence. The slab was visible again. Much of the plant life they chopped down was moved to the side of the campground, where they set up the equipment and the tents. Later that night, they all sat around the fire after a meal of hot dogs, chili beans, chips, and coffee. The talk was if they could solve the disappearances and prove what the mysteries were behind the entities that mutilated the cows, then they would be famous, even earning accolades from those who excelled in the world of science and education. Grant after grant would be given to their research. Brendan put out the fire. The lanterns were extinguished, and they called it a night. Part 9. Gone. Early before sunrise, the crew began to unpack their gear. Zach set up his tables full of small satellite dishes. Sheena unboxed her microscopes and sample vials. Laptops and calculuses were laid out and hooked up on the small monitors that lined up on the tables. Everyone was ready to deal with this thing that terrified the minds of Locust Corners. All day they waited. Hours went by. It even rained for a few moments. Still, there was no movement, no sightings. They spent 2 days there in the woods with no sightings of the memories they experienced as children. On the 3rd day, when it became dusk dark, just after sunset, the sound of crickets and pollywogs began to stir. All was still. "Oh, what a beautiful sunset," said Lily. "I've never seen a sky so clear and pristine. It's like a wind rushed in and cleared out all the trails," added Penny. No sooner, after Penny's comment, they all saw what looked like a comet barreling down from the sky. A frothy white tail was streaming behind it. It dissipated rapidly. As it was occurring, Zach was filming the entire incident. "What the hell is that?" asked Sheena. "It's a comet, silly. That's what it looks like to me," replied Brendan. Lily asked, "A satellite, maybe? Space junk?" "Well, you're both wrong. It's not either one of those. Penny,
Get on the sat phone and call Remy. Give him our coordinates and tell him what is happening. In the meantime, I will send him these stills and video,"
stated Zach. Penny contacted Remy. He asked what was her precise location. She said, in the middle of Whispering Woods, near Indigo Lake, northeast 116.2320 west latitude, 43.6150 north longitude. He knew they were going there, but where in those woods, he didn't know that. Once they were done communicating, the object crashed somewhere nearby.
"Did it crash in the lake?"
Andy asked.
"If it did, we need to hurry and pack before a tsunami ruins all of our equipment,"
shouted Brandon. They managed to get most of all they had to a higher ground upon the large boulders, and from there they waited for the roar of the water. It never came. The crew was puzzled by all of this, and each one wandered slowly down off the rock. They stayed with their camera fixed, recording every moment on the clearing. What occurred next was unbelievable. In the few moments, the crew was terrified of what they saw. It was hard to keep a level head. The women wanted to scream. The men wanted to yell out loud. They were frozen. The very thing that haunted them when they were children came rushing back into their memories. The horror they felt when they saw the dismemberment and beheading of the cows once again became all too real. The blood, torso, the limbs, each and every piece chopped up and deliberately destroyed. For what purpose? Well, they waited to see. In the meantime, Andy turned around and was purposefully trying to gain his friend's attention. Guys, whispered Andy. Zach said quietly, "Shh, don't you see what's happening? If you don't shut up and be quiet, you're going to get us all killed." "We're not alone out here," he said in a quivering voice. "Don't you think we know that?" said Sheena. Andy said one last time, "Guys." They all turned around for one last time. Riding from Boise to the town of Locust Corners was approximately 2.5 hours. Remy and a team of scientists in their field arrived at the coordinates given by Penny. When the crew arrived, there was no sign of a clearing or the children who camped out at Lake Indigo. Thank you all for listening to the novelle of Rosetta Asset, where she read for you Whispering Woods, The Dark Secret of Indigo Lake. Stay tuned for more readings of the Chemistry Files, which will be coming soon. This has been copyrighted material, all rights reserved. Thank you